Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Sparkly here with a new video for you. Welcome to Season 2, Part 4 of What If Izuku Was Majin? I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. Mina and the other students watch the frozen robot fall to the ground as Izuku and Todoroki make their way to the next obstacle. Students were in shock to see that one kid caused all this damage and another decided to follow him. Many students began to charge on the way to the robots until a giant explosion happened in the crowd. Mina watched Bakugo, Zero, and Tokoyami using their quirks to fly over the robots. "Oh no! I'm not letting any of them get ahead of me!" Mina screamed out in anger as she ran towards the group of robots. She coated her arms in acid and summoned OFA in her finger to flick at the robots, sending multiple robots with the metal falling off of them. This created a path for Mina to pass them and continue running. The other students used their quirks to defeat the robot and make their way through them. The stadium watched in awe of the students' quirks and usage, but the stadium mainly focused on the two main contestants, Izuku and Todoroki. Todoroki easily defeated the zero-pointer due to being the son of the number 2 hero, but they talked about Izuku more. They watched him run with Todoroki whenever he froze the robot in place and watched it fall on him. They thought he was hurt, but saw that he made it through with pieces of his body floating back to him. They wondered what his quirk was, especially Endeavor. He wanted to make sure that nobody would stand in his son's goals. As more students passed the first obstacle, President Mike decided to add commentary to the next part of the race.
"It looks like our two main attractions have made it to the next obstacle."
President Mike screamed through the speakers.
"But do they have what it takes to pass the hole?"
Izuku and Todoroki stopped and wondered how any of them were going to get across the gap. Todoroki took a few steps back before running at full speed and using his eyes to grind on the rails. Izuku was amazed that Todoroki could do that, but he didn't have time to sit around and watch. Izuku did the same thing as Todoroki, except instead of grinding on the rail, Izuku decided to jump into the pits. The stadium gasped at Izuku's jumping into the pit. Even Mike and Aizawa were taken back by Izuku's action. But Vomi and All Might knew what he was trying to accomplish. At least, they hoped so. The stadium fell silent, waiting for Izuku to be seen on the screen. Nothing happened until Izuku propelled himself into the air with his arms. Everyone sighed in relief when he was alive. Again. Izuku stretched out his arms, grabbing the rail and using them as vines to swing across the pit. Vomi knew he would try this, and was working perfectly. Todoroki looked back to see Izuku and Bakugo catching up to him. He grunted as he focuses on staying in the lead. More students finally made their way to the pit and noticed Todoroki grinding on the rails, Izuku stretching out his arms to swing across the rails, and Bakugo flying across the pit with his explosions. They examined the pit and thought about how to cross it. Mina and another pink-haired girl started to run towards the pits. The pink-haired girl had several gadgets on her and went on about how she was going to be noticed by the big companies that will take her and her babies. Mina ignored her and proceeded to climb on the rail and inched her way to the other side, while the other pink-haired girl used her gadgets, from using wired arrows to latch onto the pits and hovered shoes to keep her from falling. Mina was glad she didn't have to hear about her babies again. Todoroki neared the end of the second obstacle, looking back to see Izuku swinging himself high into the air and landing on the last platform in front of him.
Looks like Bakugo is finally taking this seriously. Midoriya needs to be out of the picture.
Todoroki thought to himself as he and Izuku continued running to the last obstacle. Bakugo noticed Izuku and Todoroki trying to make each other fall and ignoring him. This angered him, causing him to use more of his explosions to propel himself further, landing on the last platform and blasting towards them. "I won't let Icy Hot or Deku get ahead," Bakugo thought. As the students finished making their way to the last obstacle, President Mike screamed on the last section of the race.
"It looks like we're nearing the end of the race, and everyone is getting fired up right now. Wouldn't you agree, Eraserhead?"
President Mike screamed in the mic as Aizawa shook his head in disappointment.
"So, everyone needs to watch their step in the last one. It's a land field."
Some students watched their steps while others were blown into the air by the explosion. Izuku and Todoroki carefully made their way through the field, while Todoroki tries to reach out and freeze Izuku in place. Izuku morphed his body around to dodge Todoroki's hand, only angering him more. Todoroki reached out to grab him again, but Bakugo blasted through the duo and aimed at their heads. They could only dodge the attack and threw anything they had at each other to stop from getting ahead. Bakugo threw explosion after explosion towards two, as Todoroki tried to grab onto either of them to freeze them in place, while Izuku would morph his body around to dodge their attacks. Mina watched the fight happening in the front as she carefully made her way through the minefield trying to catch up. Izuku, Todoroki, and Bakugo were running with everything they had to get as they neared the finish line. Todoroki was able to stay ahead of Bakugo and Izuku, and he tried to freeze them in place to win, but they simply dodged it. Izuku needed to get ahead of them. He swiftly thought of ways to pass them, until one popped in his head, and neither Todoroki, Bakugo, nor the stadium was expecting what was going to happen next.
And the winner of the first event is... Izuku Midoriya?
President Mike screamed in confusion. The head of Izuku Midoriya cut through the ribbon and rolled on the ground. Everyone in the stadium was speechless that Izuku tore off his head, threw it, and was able to survive. Even Vomi was surprised. She knew that Izuku could survive devastating attacks and stretch his body in unbelievable shapes, but to tear off pieces of his body and place it back on ease is something else. She kept a mental note for it as she continued to watch. Izuku picked up his head and it reattached itself with ease. Everyone was still uneasy that Izuku pulled something like that and was so casual about it. Mina came running through the gate out of breath and was congratulating Izuku for getting in the first place. As the students make their way back to the stadium, a screen shows the placements for the top 42 students. 13th place?! Mina pouted as Izuku patted her back to comfort her. Bakugo held his head down and complained that Deku beat him along with Todoroki, while Todoroki stared at Izuku and Mina. All the students surrounded the podium and listened to the next event. Alright, now that everyone is here and their placement is shown, it's time for the second event! Midnight stated as the screen spun several events before stopping at a certain one. A cavalry battle! Midnight screamed. The students discussed how this will play out from the previous event as Midnight began explaining. Students will split into teams with the points they earned from the first event, and what stood out to the people was that Izuku had the largest number of points. Everyone targeted Izuku as a guaranteed win for everyone. Although Izuku didn't seem to be fazed, on the inside, he was freaking out that everyone was seeing him as a target now. Now, everyone, find your teammates and be ready to battle, Midnight said as the students separated and went into groups amongst their classmates. Izuku frantically looked around for anybody to join his team, but without realizing that he already has someone on his team. Mina was annoyed that he forgot that she would team up with him. Mina grabbed onto Izuku's arm and stated that they already have one person on his team. Izuku's pink skin turned bright red in embarrassment as he nervously noticed that they only needed to find 2 more people to join them. Before they could look around for other teammates, someone was chuckling and saying that he was still alone. Izuku and Mina turned around to see the pink-haired girl Mina saw in the race. Team up with me, first person in place. The pink-haired girl cheerfully screamed in their faces. Izuku and Mina jumped back in shock that this girl got in their faces. They calmed down as the girl took her goggles off and introduced her name as Mei Hatsume, and she responded to Izuku and Mina with the truth about why she was there. I want to use you for my current advantage and show the people my wonderful babies, Mei bluntly stated. Izuku and Mina were taken aback when she said about having babies with her. They were about to ask what she meant by babies, but Mei threw down a suitcase, opening it to reveal several inventions that she created. Izuku was amazed by Mei's inventions and knew what they were based on. The two discussed heroes and tech, while Mina watched them blankly. She could see the figure floating around her, chuckling at her for feeling jealous. Mina swatted the figure away from her as she continued looking around for the last member of the team. Hey Mina, let's team up! Mina turned around to see Uraraka smiling at her. She stated that she wanted to join their team because Ida joined with Todoroki and said that they saw us as rivals in this tournament. Mina knew this would happen. Todoroki had already declared her and Izuku rivals due to having a connection with All Might. He would have convinced others to see them as rivals. Mina looked back at Izuku and Mei, then to the figure, and finally back to Uraraka. She chuckled, then laughed. If they see us as rivals, Mina thought as she held her fist in front of her, then we'll give them rivals! This video is sponsored by Adobe. Adobe is redefining the digital experience through game-changing innovations that shape the next generation of storytelling. Adobe makes it easy to create, edit, and share digital documents securely, allowing you to collaborate and communicate across devices. Adobe Photoshop is your go-to application for rastered graphics editing and digital art as a whole. At We the Celestials, all of our thumbnails across every channel are created with Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Premiere Pro is a timeline-based and non-linear video editing software that is versatile and easy for beginner and master editors. Finally, Adobe After Effects is the industry standard tool for digital visual effects, motion graphics, and compositioning applications used in post-production. Many of our voice actors, audio editors, and video editors use Premiere Pro and After Effects to produce these high-quality videos. Click the link in the description to start creating now, and thank you to Adobe for sponsoring this video! Uraraka smiled and fist bumped her, and they made their way to the teammates as the other teams were formed. Midnight said that everyone is all paired up and ready.
Alright! The teams are made and ready to battle! Only 4 teams will advance to the final event!
President Mike screamed. The crowd cheered crazily as each team prepared to ambush Team Izuku. Izuku, Mina, Mei, Uraraka. As the timer continues down, Bakugo and Todoroki told their teammates to focus only on Midoriya. Izuku talked with his team that the best course of action is to avoid the other teams and be on the lookout for Bakugo and Todoroki. The teams agreed to their leader's plan and ran directly towards Team Izuku as the siren went off. Teams from different angles charged towards Izuku and his friends, surrounding their team. Mina and Uraraka asked Izuku how they were going to get away from everyone. Mei suggested using her babies to fly themselves out of her, but Izuku had another idea. Izuku pointed his hand at the ground and fired multiple energy blasts, making a cloud of smoke, blinding the teams. This gave them a chance to run away from them. They looked down to see that Uraraka's Harubu was caught on one of Mineta's balls. Izuku morphed his body around to dodge the attacks from Tsuyu and Mineta. Mina pointed her hand at Uraraka's foot as she used her acid to break down the sticky ball and free them. She told Izuku that they were free now, but he said they won't be able to get to them as the others began to run towards them. "Mina! Uraraka! Watch your faces!" Izuku shouted as he pressed the button activating the jetpack. They blasted off into the sky away from the teams and were safe, except a loud explosion could be heard from below them. Bakugo launched himself into the air with his explosions, aiming at Izuku. He laughed as he prepared to fire an explosion and steal their points. Izuku didn't have time to react, so he fired an energy blast directly into Bakugo's stomach. The blast sent him flying far back, but he was immediately caught by a dark hand. Tokoyami used Dark Shadow to bring him back to the team, as Team Izuku landed on the ground and moved on. Team Izuku couldn't catch a break with teams ambushing them from every angle. Mina and Uraraka stated that there were only a few minutes left on the clock, and they still have the points on them. Izuku knew that, but feared that it was going to be taken soon. And soon shall it be, as Team Todoroki stepped on them in their tracks. "Midoriya, Mina, the time has come," Todoroki coldly stated. "Those points are mine." Todoroki's team stared down at Izuku's team before charging at them with high speed. Team Izuku tried to back away, but with Ida on his team, they were able to keep up with them, even with hover boots. Todoroki told his team to prepare to stop the others, but they stopped whenever they heard a familiar voice. "Amphianne, you stay the hell away from Deku!" Bakugo angrily stated as he blasted himself off of his teammates and towards Todoroki. Todoroki called for Momo to create a staff for him. Momo created the staff and gave it to him. Once he got it, he planted it on the ground to create a barrier between him and Bakugo. But it didn't work, as Bakugo blasted upwards to ice and blasted downward at high speed. "He's my target, so go find someone else!" Todoroki reached out to grab Bakugo to freeze him in midair, but Bakugo blasted around him. Izuku pointed out that they're both distracted and made a run for it. Bakugo noticed and blasted towards them. Izuku turned around to fire another blast at him, but Bakugo was blown away by a huge gust of wind. Izuku looked down to see Mina with another broken finger. He asked her if she was okay, and she said to only focus on keeping the headband as there was only 1 minute left. Tokoyami summoned Dark Shadow and placed him on top. Bakugo yelled out to keep going after them and take down whoever gets in his way. Todoroki told Ida to use his quirk at full speed, and Ida agreed. Ida activated his quirk and charged at them. Team Bakugo and Todoroki charged towards Team Izuku and readied their attacks at them. Izuku charged an energy blast as Mina prepared to summon OFA. All teams were ready to fire until...
Time's up!
President Mike screamed as all the teams froze in place, as Mike began to say the top 4 teams that won.
In first place is Team Midoriya!
Mina and Uraraka jumped in excitement of being in the first place. Mei worked on fixing her tech while Izuku chuckled and watched the girls celebrate. Mina went over and hugged him, making him blush.
Second place is Team Todoroki!
Todoroki turned his head towards his father, and from a distance he could see him with a disappointed look on his face. He ignored him as he walked over to Midoriya and Mina. They noticed him walking over to them and asked what he needed. All Todoroki simply said,
"Follow me."
Midoriya and Mina looked at each other in confusion. They wondered why Todoroki wanted them to follow him, but they just shrugged it off and followed him.
Third place is Bakugo!
Bakugo screamed out in anger as his teammates watched and sighed as he was overreacting. Bakugo slammed his fist on the ground repeatedly from getting in third place again. He continued to scream until he saw Midoriya, Mina, and Todoroki walking down a tunnel. Getting up and made his way towards them.
Fourth place is Team Tetsu... Wait, it's Team Shinjo!
Shinsho's team was confused about what happened as Shinsho walked away with the crowd of students, a smile on his face. Uraraka and Ida talked amongst each other about the event and that battle with Todoroki and Bakugo. She turned her head around to talk with Midoriya and Mina, but they weren't there. In a secluded tunnel of the stadium, Midoriya, Mina, and Todoroki leaned against the wall, waiting for one of them to speak. Midoriya stated that they should hurry up before the last event began, but Todoroki interrupted him.
"Midoriya, Mina, answer me this."
Todoroki said. Midoriya and Mina waited for him to say what he wanted to say.
"Are you two related to Vomi and All Might?"
They stood there in confusion and embarrassment. Todoroki asked if they were, and they immediately stated that they aren't their parents. Well, except Izuku and Vomi, but that's it. Todoroki stared at them as he thought back to the USJ attack, how Izuku and Vomi shared similar powers, and how Mina created powerful gusts of wind like All Might. Todoroki shook his head and decided to make a simple similarity between Izuku and Vomi.
"Are you sure? Because you and Vomi are capable of multiple quirks that nobody should be able to have unless they were forced to create one."
Izuku and Mina were nervous when he made the similarities between him and Vomi. They didn't want anything about the truth of them to get out. So they said Izuku and Vomi are distant relatives, and that they had family members with different quirks that created a new quirk. Todoroki stared at them for a second before taking the lie. They sighed in relief and asked what he meant by force. Todoroki then told them about his history with his family, the usage of only ice, and why he wants to defeat them both and prove his father wrong. Izuku and Mina felt bad that Todoroki went through all that. Todoroki went away from them, apologizing for wasting their time. They stood there for a few seconds before walking towards him and saying that they'd defeat him. Todoroki kept walking away as Izuku turned towards the tunnel. "Ka-chan, I know you're there," Izuku said. Bakugo walked out from behind the wall and didn't answer them. Izuku asked how much he heard, with him simply saying all of it. Bakugo kept walking away from them as they followed him to the last events of the festival. Thank you all for indulging yourself in this information thus far. I hope you all enjoyed it! Now, there are a few more things I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, I'd like to thank our Patreons! BD Flames, Ethan Davis, Cherry Chills, Shifter Millies, Adam Zagel, Zill, Zaybeat03, and Joshua Phelps. Secondly, I'd like to thank all of our YouTube members. Toy Acosta, Rob the King, SithLord906, CF2364 and Knuckles, Remote Tempest, Angel Juarez, Donald C., Stewart, Brian Greer, and Demonized Fox. Thirdly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, we the Celestials have you covered. We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Fourthly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in today's excellent content production. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, I'd like to extend an invitation to join the team. The only caveat is that we only accept members from 16 years old to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it for today's video. So, thank you all so much for watching and have a great day!